watching the clock, 10,000 hours go by. I keep putting in work, the tears are filling my eyes. I swear I've never been tested like this, but this is mine. It's not a matter of chance, just a matter of time. Never look back. If something's standing in my way, I always push back. If something seemed impossible, I never took that. Nah, cause now I know better. Can't stop, won't stop, I won't quit ever. The highest fall, it won't break me. The blood and sweat is what made me. I'ma get mine, just a matter of time.
Welcome back, guys, to the LCK. This is Joel with the translations for Bitangman and Bitdol once again. We're looking at Griffin and KT, who's looking strong for KT for game number 1, but game number 2 was on the side of Griffin, and now they are the ones to pull it back to even, and we are now at an even series where either team could take game number 3 and collect the win for themselves out of this series. And of course, the Nocturne was a big story out of the jungler space, and there's a lot of interesting different things in terms of picks. That was a little bit of point of interest from the side of Griffin. Of course, that all translated to a win at the end, but the execution was definitely there. Of course, we look at how Griffin, with their strategizing, see how they won out that game 2. You're going to see the start of the phase here. This is right around the Scuttle Crab course. They're trying to just get as much vision around the Scuttle Crab area as they can, and this was right here when basically the ward was spotted, as you can see right there. And look at where it is right now, and just obviously flashing through, but that's going to be the biggest thing, obviously trying to get the Scuttle Crab with the vision in hand, but you have to be aware of both teams. Having the vision on both sides was the biggest thing, because especially with the Jace, really thought that even with Jace, thinking that there was going to be basically no way for Jace to escape there. And of course, we were looking at Tarzan at the same time. Was going around this jungle camp and trying to just go back to recall and trying to come back in time. That's basically the thing. This was right around Chovy when placing that ward. Definitely spots that. Definitely spots that 61 HP of that Scuttle Crab, knowing that it had to be Nocturne. And now Tarzan is busy and hurriedly fast feed on the going back to the top lane, and because he's knowing. Basically, because the Jace, without that flash, it was going to be very, very vulnerable. And Score, you talked about just investing a flash to get there, just a free flash to get out of vision. But little did he know that he was spotted by that little ward that could from Chovy that was spotted just a little bit earlier, hunting down the Scuttle Crab. So Score on that instance, kind of forward thinking in terms of thinking ahead of trying to flash through that wall just to make sure to not get sighted out in vision. But Griffin was 2 steps ahead of Score on that one, and how they all knew that the Score was going to go on to top lane. So quick thinking coming from Tarzan and the rest of Griffin to react to that in time. And we also look at another instance where the tide of the game did definitely change, and we're going to see how that all went out. What's the start of it? Looking like a really good dive from Kennen. And we thought that something that would have been on the favor of KT on that instance. Of course, the Nocturne already using the ultimate to darken the surroundings, and that meant basically they were going to go for the ultimate, try to go for the hit, and try to go for the kill right away. And this is where it all builds up. Mata even joins in on the Alistar to join in for that gank, hopefully to try to get get some type of basically advantage. But look at this 10. Level 10 is where the Nocturne stands right now. And this was right here where Smeb definitely gets the start off with that vision already. And you look at the basically the radius of that ultimate really cut short. So kind of knowing that the idea was in hand and it was very good idea, but you just had to communicate if you are Score and also Smeb, knowing the timing to go for the ultimate chain. And basically, you know, Smeb's idea was good and it initiated off well, but Score definitely couldn't follow up just because of the lack of the radius that was on that semi-global ultimate of the Nocturne. And in the end, KT, a little bit of mistakes here and there. And you know, the best thing about Griffin is that whenever the opponents make the mistakes, they know how to capitalize on it and execute and just form the snowball from there. And we also look at the fans really putting a lot of faith back into Griffin, thinking that they can just extend this really nice run that they're having and maybe just add another long here. And we do get the one-line summary saying Griffin is a rookie, but they are god at team fights. So just take one word out. Shinip is a new, but Shin is god. So just take one letter out, and then you get the whole of a different. So sending it back to you.
Thank you very much, Joel. That was a confusing one to explain, but I think you did an absolutely great job, much like our MVP for this game, which will be Tarzan on the Taliyah. 3-0-10, 93% kill contribution. This guy played like a beast. And 400 points now for the man that wasn't expecting too many MVP points this season.
It's been very fun to watch his pathing this season, his growth as a player at the highest level. Very nice little segment there to understand Tarzan's play. Of course, he was well aware that the Nocturne was topside, but he thought he'd be meeting him at the River Brush, not, of course, behind the pit because of the flash over by the Nocturne. Made the skirmishing a bit cleaner. But this game from KT was anything but clean when it was up there to be won. The late game decisions are what really shut down the KT Rolster hopes in game number 2.
Yeah, not to mention the fact that all of the team fights for Griffin just seem to be navigated so beautifully. Their use of aggro, their use of control, this unfortunate headbutt that came in from Mata to send away Tarzan was a problem. However, Griffin elsewhere just able to get the work done. Chobeat moves in. Lahens was able to get resets in a whole host of these fights, and it didn't really matter whether Smeb got his flank. They were too far behind.
Definitely this was a result of gold lead. Smeb. Zonius was late, but they still would have lost the fight if the cannon had lived for another 2.5 seconds. Cleaned up by Griffin when they needed to. They won it before the composition became a huge issue. So congratulations to Tarzan. Though we are the true winners, Atlas, we get a game number 3.
Exactly. See whether anything is going to change on either camp's side, but I have a feeling these are the strongest comps for both of them as far as the players. So we should be just getting straight back into it. Coaches are going to enter the booth, and Champ Select is going to be oh so interesting for Game 3 because the mind game certainly started there, and Griffin had a whole lot of curveballs to throw Game 2. Are they going to have any saved up for Game 3?
I just want to get into that pick and ban. Seems like with this sick wide shot we will. Let's get the augmented reality up there. Let's get it going. And what will KT ban on red side? Because remember, they found space for a Shen ban on the red side. Usually, we're locked into Aatrox, Taliyah, and Nocturne. How many of those picks are going to be banned by KT? Because you still feel really good about the Shen ban, but there's starting to be other stuff that you might want to consider banning away.
Well, the Aatrox once again going to be banned, as we'll see whether KT just run it back. The Shen would be banned in this spot if they were going to repeat what happened in the past in game number 1 when the teams were on these sides. Tahm Kench was also the same ban for Griffin as Zoe. The respect going to come in from KT.
See what Griffin opts into then at first pick. I imagine there's no way they get Nocturne Shen, even if they get one of them at first pick. So, see what they're going to work out here in terms of what they want to ban. Taliyah and Nocturne, the two big quote-unquote OPs, with the Swain flex pick also. And Griffin already going to be thinking about what KT will be first rounding on red side. They will not be rounding a cannon at any point. That means if top laners aren't taken first round, we could see Griffin try to set up a scenario where all Mundo's counters are gone and maybe find a way to pick that one up.
Well, Taliyah's left open and then Griffin decide that they want to pick that one up. Then Shen Nocturne will be available together for KT on the red side, and Mundo's going to be the throwaway ban here. Leaving a whole lot of stuff open yet again, and KT going to see whether they can reap the reward.
I think you have to pick Shen or Nocturne as the first pick. if you're Griffin, they have excellence over both, so I'll kind of leave it to them as to what to decide. Anything else will be a surprise. The Swain flex pick for other teams is powerful, but for Griffin it is not. They have not performed on Swain like most of our other LCK teams. They have performed on the Nocturne. The 4-0 Nocturne will be the first pick for Tarzan.
Well, the Shen is the no-brainer here for KT, but what do they decide to take away next? Are they taking the Taliyah? As that's most likely going into the hands of UCAL in my mind, but we'll see whether Score has been playing it as well.
And remember, KT put the fun in Funnel when it comes to getting UCAL a win on Funnel Taliyah back at Rift Rivals. So there's a chance they will be getting that. They also don't take Swain first round because they're not too worried. If Griffin are to pick it up, Griffin flash it and say, yeah, maybe not us. As they're going to probably go for the Morgana first. Could, of course, be Morgana Pike taken in the first round here if Griffin won it. That would be an strategy that SK Telecom played very, very well earlier in the season. They could take the Swain for power level, but because it is this gap in their champion pool, there's no certainty about what Chovy picks up.
I'd actually like the Pike to be picked up here because I wasn't super awed by what Lehens was capable of on the Morgana. Wasn't necessarily one of his super hype champions, much like the Shen certainly was. In fact, back a couple of days ago on Thursday, it was back-to-back performances. Lehens' Shen looked unbelievable, and then Mata doing similar things in the Telecom War to follow that series up. What does UCAL pick here as the Swain was the lock-in from Griffin?
And remember, KT also have other ways they can go Atlas because, yes, UCAL will be the best Taliyah player on the squad in a vacuum because he has played so many games. He was a Taliyah one-trick when he was first scouted on the pro ladder here in Korea before he went and dealt with Rush to actually get the eyes of KT Rolster. But before the Ezreal pick, Taliyah Shen has actually been one of our sick duo lanes in the bot lane.
Yeah.
We now know that it will not be a duo lane as the Ezreal will be going into the bot lane, but there definitely was a lot of misdirection about the first round. Taliyah Shen that KT picked up, banning the Yasuo on red side. Zoe already banned, the Yasuo taken out.
Makes you think that that Taliyah should be heading towards the mid lane, given the good matchup for the Yasuo into the Taliyah.
Then does Chovy try to play Galio to give Nocturne a dive buddy, you wonder? Chovy hasn't really been on the Galio hype train this season. Griffin have played one game of Galio, but Chovy rather is usually their Galio player and obviously isn't in the lineup for this series. And the Vladimir ban does go the way of Griffin, suggesting they were thinking that maybe they would be Viper jumping onto the pick.
Yeah. And also just not wanting to deal with Viper's undefeated Vladimir was ignored in game number 1. However, this time around, KT realized that it could be picked up and they decided not to trifle with it. The Gangplank going to come in, both of the Mundo counters to be banned away here. KT, do they just pick up the Mundo for themselves?
Mundo's banned in the first round, Atlas.
Oh,
so
yes,
when it comes to the
sorry.
big top laners, Gnar is one of the few ones left open. Unless we're getting situational. What are we last picking for is the question I'm asking KT. The answer seems to be for top lane. At some point, if we see Gnar locked in by the side of Griffin, it could just be a Shen top lane. That's a thing they could consider doing.
That's true.
Because we've just gained the dregs of the top lane champion pool for maybe the first time this season. Top lane has usually just been plug and play Mundo versus Darius. The Ornn is available, and with the Nocturne actually wouldn't be a terrible draft by the side of Griffin. The Gragas is a flex pick, but looking increasingly like a top laner for the side of Griffin, but we'll hold our judgment until we see where the Swain Morgana are going.
Well, the Gragas is going to be locked in, and like you say, feels top lane orientated. Gives Smeb a bit of flexibility, given the fact that he has been picked up largely for his teamfight and prowess elsewhere other than just in the laning phase.
What does Griffin need? There's a lot of things they could go. They don't necessarily need more damage. They could use it. They could have a marksman here even if they really want it.
Varus looks pretty good in this composition.
A Vel'Koz
Or
is
more
dropped.
purple could be the other option.
The Vel'Koz here isn't taken where we usually see Vel'Koz, which is against Bruisers. Against Swain, we see the Vel'Koz heavily prized. One of the reasons to consider Vel'Koz is Nocturne uses Paranoia, and then you outrange with your ultimate here, do you, on the Vel'Koz? Smeb playing with my heart. He knows how much I love the Smeb Rumble.
3 seconds to go. It's Marta playing with your heart now, and I have a feeling Smeb wants to do this. The Rumble is going to be locked in. It should be going to Smeb, and Papa's clapping. He's ready to see what KT can do with Smeb on his signature pick top.
But I need to look at the lane assignments here. If it is Gragas top, like we first thought, Rumble is seen as a counter pick into the Gragas. We haven't had the matchup so far in the LCK. In fact, recent Rumbles have been in the mid lane with Smite. That has been a strategy that's been used, but this is very likely to be the roles here. Waiting to see if Vel'Koz is going to wave clear against Talia. Will have an advantage there after the clear nurse, or whether he will be in the bot lane. The Vel'Koz can take advantage of the paranoia vision shredding in order to just load up with the ultimate from out of sight range and pull off some powerful ults. But also, Rumble ultimate, he's going to have to disengage his ult because the Vel'Koz is very squishy. Griffin have definitely taken a bit of a shrewd risk here with the Vel'Koz. There's not a lot of backline threat at all from KT Rolster. No one's diving into the backline Gragas style. They do have long-range damage to try to push him away.
Yeah, I think the only thing that they've got there is the equalizer to be thrown into the backline that could theoretically zone some people away from a fight.
Could knock him over with Weaver's Wall. In a team fight, harder to find time to actually charge it, but it would knock the Vel'Koz aside. But yes, they're not really able to launch too much, and their champions aren't built for backline threat. Intriguing final game draft. Definitely another new page in this growing Griffin versus KT rivalry.
Yeah, and there's some excitement for what KT can do flexibility-wise with where they put the Shen, where they put the equalizer. Lamb's Respite is going to come into that one as well, buying a lot of time to get the Stand United to actually complete with a lot of control available to them. Man, there are so many things yet to unpack as we move into Game 3. Griffin versus KT Rolster. Let's see who's going to take it all. So many KT fans here in the audience today. See whether they can send them their energy. They'll need to reverse this momentum. We've got so many power picks for all of these players on the side of KT. In fact, you'd say, looking down the line, I think it's just a Marta Alistair away from signature picks for everyone.
And I take an even further step back and I say, where better could you be as a League of Legends fan than right here for Game 3 between Griffin and KT Rolster? A lot of legendary picks, you're already alluding to that. The Alistair not there, but the Shen will be just fine for Marta. Smeb's on his 71st career game as the Rumble. It doubles his next most played. He is the legendary Rumble player left in the LCK after his old friend Marin has popped over to China and doesn't seem to play anymore. So please come back once again. We're sending out the milk cartons. Where's Marin at? He's still streaming. Here it is. This is just in Korea. He has played 53 games and then has taken it international for many more. Legend of the Rumble, but his only Rumble game so far this season was a loss.
Yeah, see whether he can turn that one around. He wants 50% at least by the end of this game. Him and Sword just going to face off. Is it once again going to be top lane focus for either of these teams? Griffin was looking top a lot in game number 1, especially in Smeb. He's on the hard shove champion. If any champion is known to get ganked all the damn time, it is a Rumble.
And, well, with that push, though, it does open up the ganks, which we saw in game number 2, but it also opens up the Kindred to say, hey, what about your blue buff? Hey, what about this Scuttle? He's got lane presence to play around. And before
a mark as well.
For a couple levels in the W, Vel'Koz can't just instant clear the mid, so Score says, thank you, this is my blue buff, and, well, maybe his life will also be vacated as a very deep ward put down by Yukal.
Yeah, Yukal trying to deny some of this CS and experience as Chovy finally moves his way over. Dustbringer is going to come through, but what it does is it just buys time for Score to steal away that red, and, sorry, the blue. And now what does this mean, Papa? We've seen Score do this before. It meant double Rift Scuttler as well as a 3 buff, and that may be what's on the cards here today.
Definitely set this season record for the Kindred with 14 marks on the Kindred in that huge game against Hanwha Life, last game before Rift Rivals for KT and for the LCK in general. And Score is definitely on the front foot, as you would expect with a draft like this.
Ooh, the double mark as well.
If you wait long enough, it is very likely to mark that Scuttle Crab, of course, so we'll pick that up. Yukal has plenty of lane presence before. Those kind of level 5 is where the Vel'Koz gets going in terms of pushing, and Kindred's happy to get 2 marks before he has to even worry about mid lane as bot lane.
Marta taunt does come out. There's Def landing some Mystic shots onto Lehens.
Getting frisky.
Yeah, damage coming in there as The never moves have not been great from either team so far today, as, man, Mata is pretty keen on using his health bar as a resource in this laning phase.
Trying to get some mana out of the Swain as well.
Does so. Below half on that one, but he's got some corrupting potion stacks. He should be absolutely fine.
I do like the read in the draft that KT made, which was, we don't care about Griffin selecting Swain at first pick, at last pick, in the middle of the rounds.
Yeah, whatever happens, yeah.
Not a team that have performed on the Swain, talked about it in game 1, but Chovy went bot lane Swain and got slammed in that series against FLICKR. 150 CS lost in a 2v2 lane against Aiming's Varus. And then we saw Viper play it decently in game 1, but definitely didn't capture the imagination, so I don't think they worried too much about giving open a pick that many teams in this league would absolutely snap up at first pick. So I think KT, when it comes to shrewd drafting, have been able to do that. They've also set up this lane where Rumble does very, very comfortably until a couple of magic resist items against the Gragas, and Gragas never really has kill presence unless Tarzan is coming along. Tarzan himself has lost his blue buff. He's jungling in vision, so he is completely being kept tracks of, and even though the hotfix nerf does remove some of the rock-serving movement speed, every time Talia goes missing, she's getting down wards, and she's putting down threat onto the members of Griffin.
Yeah, what do we always talk about? We talk about getting those Talia wards. This is the mid lane Talia, different situation to what we talk about a lot, because she's often in the jungle, but KT have a bit of a free run if UCal is going to make that roam. He's clearing up minion wave after minion wave. Score just waiting in the wings down here, knows that this is a place where they want to get that vision, so he's lying in wait, ready to try and knock someone down. KT losing a bit of priority down here on the bottom side, though, as Griffin certainly have that health advantage, and Mata going back to base. See what he can actually get done here as Smeb. Underneath the turret, has to use the flash before that Terrify comes in, but he was almost able to solo out Sword by himself under a turret at level 5.
Tech that's been seen in some of the LCS regions that the Rumble does do very well into the Gragas matchup early. Gragas can't even go for his bop autos with the W buff. He will still lose pretty one-sidedly to the Flamespitter. Only reason the flash had to be invested there was that Smeb would have drawn turret aggro as the minion wave was dying. UCal finds Tarzan.
He's going to find him, and also almost gets the boot back with the seismic shove. It's a massive level advantage as the equalizer is god tier from Smeb, and will be able to get first blood. He wasn't even on the same screen.
Hello, my name's Smeb. My pocket pick is Rumble. No surprise here. We know how good it is. Sword trying to make something, but there's 3.
Yep, special delivery to the bottom side. That's a huge knock-up, but Sword is still going to die. And Smeb tanking up the turret will fall. So it's a 1-for-1, and Chovy wants to get even more. There is no mana on UCal at all as Score dances out of the way, but can't dance far enough. Disintegration rate too good, and Griffin fight back.
Very exciting top lane play. Nowhere for Smeb to go. He goes down because of his flash being used earlier. Where the kills lie will be the interesting takeaway. Tarzan had the worst feeling ever. This is the same feeling as you have when that zillion bomb on your head is going to kill you in a few seconds' time. You're slowly walking down the red carpet, not to the Oscars, but in fact to the death chamber. Nicely done by Smeb. But KT want more. They get greedy. And UCal having a low mana bar means this is going to be just a full attempt here. When it comes to turret aggro, Score flashes out of it, Smeb gets it, and that means that Smeb goes down.
Yeah, it was a little bit unfortunate because that was the very last second that Sword was even alive, that turret aggro was worn out, which meant that it was a slight amount of mechanical misplay that was what denied them the good dive.
But the excitement of the Rumble being back in the meta is for Smeb being on the pick, because usually the only time we've seen Smeb draft the Rumble, it's been a losing matchup because there's a lot of them for the Rumble. He really struggles in the 1v1 laning. But the payoff is the equalizers, and Smeb is one of the best of all time and should be increasingly a treat to watch as the game goes on.
Well, Score's up to 4 marks as well. You can see that due to the fact that the mark is now on the blue buff, which takes a few marks before that happens.
7 minutes.
I know. It's about to tick over to 8. It's now Flamespitter going to burn Sword down, and Score, he even wants to deny this red buff as well. He's going to get the control ward in, so Tarzan at least going to clear that one out, and he's not going to go too aggressive, as Mata still taking lots of damage down here on the bottom side, but Sword needs to come in to try and get anything done, as the Weaver's Wall is going to deny. They really want to buff up score, and the patience on this blue buff is going to be all right. It's taken from UCal, and that means the mark goes over to score.
5th mark to score now. We're getting to comical amounts of marks so early into the game, but I think the marks are the most visible thing we're seeing. What we should be taking away is KT playing these Kindred tempo drafts just as good as we saw from FLICKR yesterday in their perfect game, where it's really all about drawing a huge advantage through lane pressure. That was the Smite Rumble game. It's still a Rumble game here, but it's a winning lane on the top side that has propelled Score to just say, every time I go near 2 members of the enemy, I know we'll win. If there's 1v1, I know I'll win. And that is the correct read. You got UCal who can pack up and join you first. It's really good aggressive play from KT. And the pre-match statistics showed in the early game, as we've known for the better part of 2 years, KT is the best. Griffin is slow, and Griffin has to kind of be slapped with some cold water, which in this case is KT Rolster.
It still doesn't make you feel like this is over by any means, though, because we're moving towards Griffin territory, and yes, it looks like KT are on track to get their game working out, especially with the gigantic league that Smeb does have. But the beauty of this matchup is the fact that as the game moves forward, we move further and further into Griffin territory.
And in the cookie jar, and Mum saw it this time, as the control ward is spotting out Tarzan. There's no threat onto him just yet, but Nocturne, any vision on Nocturne has been a game plan for KT. Remember how many camps he was on a ward on earlier. He still doesn't know.
No.
And we're getting to so much information.
Comical levels. It's almost like that one just near the red buff that we often see go in and last for extraordinary lengths of time. UCal able to clear out waves very fast at the moment with his Lost Chapter. Also has the Merc Treads. It's going to save him against all of the damage potential that Chovy is going to throw in until that true damage comes through with the Disintegration Ray.
Just so much information here. On to Tarzan's movements this game, whether it was from Smeb's wards over the wall to that control ward. It's a lane ward. This is what we see against Rammus, any Predator jungler. You want the lane ward down, and this one lasts forever if no one ever checks.
Yeah, Morellonomicon comes in from Smeb as well, so he's got so much damage, and he's going to deny. A lot of that passive regen that the Gragas does have relies on that a lot. Drunken Rage also getting the buff will mean that it's going to be less effective.
And the Liandry's nerf was a big nerf to Rumble in some ways, but the Morellonomicon change actually fits a new niche and still is uniquely viable on Rumble, because having access to on-hit Grievous Wounds is one of the things that Rumble never had.
Yeah.
He couldn't pick up Grievous Wounds because it didn't itemize into the old Morellonomicon. Obviously, too many stats that didn't fit him, including the CDR and the mana
being a problem, yeah.
And obviously, Executioner's Calling doesn't need explanation. Now you get on-hit. I got ignored by the Rumble play there, but you get on-hit healing reduction is mid lane.
Okay, Chovy's just dead. UCal just solos him. All right, this is why he was a Taliyah one trick, but man, Chovy, you should not have let that happen.
Did it through heal as well. No flash used, but nothing used by UCal at all. That's a symptom of a big problem here for the side of Griffin.
Feeling like the beginning of the end, to be honest. That had a very ominous ring to it for Griffin fans. Tarzan is going to turn up, get himself a minion wave, but Shelly's going to go down. Top lane tower's going to go down. It's amazing that one play can be so important, but
UCal missed one of your skills. Apparently he missed nothing.
He thread the needle on everything.
I don't think he even missed a rock.
Yeah.
Well,
I mean, that's the damage potential of this Taliyah. It's why she gets banned so much, but man, you're expected to miss some.
And you hit on this in the champ select, but I'm actually having it wash over me a little bit. If this was game 5, you know, in the old OGN system with a blind pick, you put in maybe an Alistair for Mata.
That's exactly what I said. Yeah.
It's beautiful.
It's stunning.
I didn't fully internalize it, but I sit back and I'm like, yeah, okay, actually.
Hang on a sec. This is actually signature picks for literally everyone. Maybe you have score on Rex side. Maybe that's what you do.
And that doesn't necessarily mean a drafting misfire. It just means that KT are going to be playing with even more gusto, even more confidence, even more knowledge of what their champions do. They should have perfect understanding of that in this game. Just finishing off the point on Rumble, Morellonomicon was 40% and below health. You can do healing reduction. Rumble now has an item that lets him do healing reduction at any moment. And he has so many ways to apply because he has so many different on-hits and damage over time abilities. So now he has a great use as Marta decides to give Griffin something back.
Yeah, he just wants to demonstrate that he's the golden boy, and yes, Shen is one of his perfect picks as well.
I've talked about League of Legends hard mode on this stream before. He doesn't even need his stasis.
He was feeling so confident that he just grabbed his watch and threw it on the ground. He's like, I don't even need to know what time it is because I know that it's just time for Griffin to die.
See, if he had walked up to an enemy champion and done it, it would have been right in line with the one-handed Jace game he's famous for.
Oh, we don't like talking about that one. What about his Lee Sin game? Do we want to talk about that?
No. In fact, let's not talk about 2016 at all when it comes to Marta.
Yeah, probably a good idea. He did have some good times, but that was the year of Deft in China.
Oh, Deft hit a Mystic shot onto Marta.
Haha, taking him down. It's Essence Flux, that's okay, but oof, Mystic shot onto your teammates is not good news.
Griffin has been... Griffin, and by Griffin, I'm actually zooming in on Tarzan, like the observers, has been just so controlled this game.
Yeah.
He's been on a leash. He's been on such a short leash that we've seen no relevance out of the Nocturne first pick at all. Masterful stuff from KT. Just immaculate execution.
And we're actually being serious this time around. The early game in Game 1 was also good, but this is feeling like another masterclass from Score to tell you how to play Kindred into basically anyone, especially farming junglers in the early game. He's just been abusive on this champion pick. True Shot Barrage just to clear out a minion wave as Score, remember, does have the ultimate available for any dives that are going to come in to save the KT players. You can see it's all about controlling minion waves and then moving into darkness to mean that Griffin have to play respectfully. Yukal, once again, just going to be able to destroy Chovy, and Shelly going to help destroy his turret as well.
Much Chovy can do here if there's enough reinforcements from KT. Weaver's Wall used to try to cut off some reinforcements. The Morgana is actually caught behind the Weaver's Wall.
And Smeb is going to come in here as well. The ultimate comes down from Chovy, but that's just going to try and soften up Shelly a little bit. Deft gets out with the Arcane Shift, and Shelly is taken down. But that's a lot of turret damage. Availability for KT to come back to that lane and put on yet more pressure. But things actually wash out okay for Griffin. And if you have a look down the line at CS values, it's only top lane and jungle that's a problem, as Smeb gonna get caught out. Does have his stopwatch, but takes so much long-range poke damage. Might be enough to get them this outer turret in the mid lane, however, and they do so.
The vision control they had gave them perfect information over how many members from Griffin wanted to leave and how many were staying. So when I first thought that trade, I said, oh, it doesn't matter. Remember, we got the mid lane Vel'Koz. He'll just wave clear for days. But because you have the extra information and the threat of an equalizer and other zoning ultimates, you just push up for a second go at it, and you do get that mid lane outer turret that previously was full health. So that's a big win for KT Rolster. They've already got great deep vision. They've already got globals. Now they have the ability to continue to punish and also to continue to make Tarzan's ultimate basically an ability not worth skilling at this point in the game.
Yeah, it's just not really a thing that's able to get much work done. As look at that damage. The damage dealt coming out from the Rumble is huge, but thankfully for Chovy, he's also able to stay even with Yukal. Just unfortunately, in that trade in mid lane, it was all of it happening all at once from the Taliyah.
Well, Nocturne's done 167 damage to champions this game.
I was trying to ignore it, Papa.
Well,
I want to have another damage
but that's
meme.
exactly what KT wanted to do, to make the Nocturne completely anonymous. And through their great vision control, their rotational play, playing around Kindred's invades, they have made, that's what they got. That's not Nocturne not pressing his buttons as a fault of the Nocturne. That's the enemy team not allowing the Nocturne any room to breathe.
See whether he can actually find himself a paranoia to start off a fight that they want, but this is what KT want to do. They want to park themselves somewhere, catch someone out, and then balloon that lead ever further. They're looking down the barrel as well of a KT with 2-item spikes on two of their big carries, Deft and Smeb, looking for Morellonomicon Leandries, which is still very, very strong on the Rumble. And then Deft wants to transform his Manamune into the Muramana alongside this Trinity Force that is newly picked up. KT will have a lot of damage potential. Score as well. Going to look very strong once he's picked up that rapid fire cannon on top of his Warrior Enchant.
Look how shallow the control ward line for Griffin has to be, and it's still being cleared out. They're finding it so hard to actually control any camps in the jungle. This is one way to keep the snowball going, just give them nothing to farm.
Well, thankfully Tarzan's able to get in there with a smite, takes away a mark and a red buff, but it's his own red buff and something that he's expected. to be able to pick up for himself. KT just soaking a whole lot of buttons on the bottom side of the map as they siege down the turret.
But you just rewind the game. They were denying a control ward behind the red buff pit towards the Griffin base before the outer bot lane turret had been killed. Only now is it going down. But such is the control that getting to Raptors was impossible at 18 minutes in the game, even with an outer bot lane turret only now being crashed after the fact.
Yeah. And it's Mata again on one of his idiot-proof champions.
Yeah.
You know, it's not the Tahm Kench this time. We're not going to have the Magic Devours, but he said it himself. He needs to save his teammates and has Stand United to do so if anyone's caught out. Now, everyone's so powerful that it's not about whether they get caught out. It's about killing Griffin.
But there's one area that Mata is just actually not contributing in. He needs to take the next step now. Finally, he knows what he needs to play. He needs to go Unsealed Spellbook and take Smite, because that's still a growing problem.
Oh, that's the dream.
That is an option he has.
That.
Why this Aftershock crap? You can't Smite down anything with that.
Oh no, I just realized you've pointed us to exactly their problem. The Smite's a huge issue so far. All right, Papa.
Problem solving how KT throw games has been something in the past that's actually come true too many times.
I feel like there's a lot of very disappointed KT fans that feel like they just know how to draft for this team to let them win every single game. And it's called band-aiding problems and not giving them strengths.
I don't think KT teaches healthy mental health either, though, because
No.
as a KT fan, you're always...
As soon as you're a KT fan, though, you already have the problem. I mean, you look at the problem, like, where is it?
Excitement is one of the best feelings you can have.
I know,
And
but
not for KT fans.
I mean, why are people, like, drug abusers, though, Papa Smithy? Because it must feel good at some point.
Even if you leave KT Rolster and your League of Legends fandom in the back, you'll be in the future, you'll get excited, and then you'll have this instant tinge of depression, and you won't know why. You'll forget. But then KT Rolster will come back to you.
Exactly. And you'll realize that it was these players, it was this team that caused you to feel that. The lingering doubt, the dread. The Smeb, he's got his Leandri's Torment. He's got his Book and a Burning Face. He can now face down against anyone and feel really good about it. Deft going to help take down this Ocean Drake that KT are going to augment their earlier one with. Def desperately wanting to move back, grab that Muramana, which surely the tier has transformed into already, and they've just been setting up for these gank brushes, and this finally could be their opportunity as Sword.
They wouldn't expect him to be stationarily recalling there, to be honest.
They are now going to figure it out as Deft throws in his Trinket Ward. Mata moves on over, but man, they've just got so much information. The leash that Griffin is on is tiny, and that is such an incredibly scary mythical beast to put on a leash that small.
Griffin is definitely the prototypical British gentleman who really would like you to stop hitting him. And he's like, could you please stop?
Would you mind?
Would you mind just, could I please have one of those? Because what else can they do? If they walk up, they die. Early power spikes, early itemization. They have no map control. They have the white flag above them at every moment, but there's a late game that they have a lot more chances in if they continue to keep the game at this pace, not the explosive pace of 5 minutes ago.
Well, you can see this is the ability that KT have. Score just able to face check as many brushes as he wants on the bottom side of the map. He's got protection for days. He's got Lamb's Respite as well as the availability of his Shen right on top of him. And that ultimate, giving Smeb time to teleport in, is such a huge deal as well. We know that Rumble, always known for the ability to just get right into a fight and have the equalizer be instantly strong. And now they're just sieging inner turrets on the bottom side of the map. The suffocation for Griffin is just, it almost feels mean.
It does feel that way, but remember the gold lead is not growing. It's still at 4,000, which is big for 22 minutes, but Tarzan's getting a camp. That's something that wasn't happening 3 or 4 minutes ago. The marks, we saw 4 at 8 minutes, and we have 6 at 22 minutes, which lets you know the game pace has slowed down. That is good news for the side of Griffin. I don't think they necessarily just auto-win at a point. I think there still is team fights that KT Rolster for sure can win, but they're very, very squishy. And again, it feels like 2017 Spring again, where they've drafted for the early game. They've got a big early game lead. I think they've played very, very well like they did in Game 1 of this series. But still, you won't believe it until they actually cement it with what feels like a game breaker. First Baron, first Inhibitor. Those are the things we're looking for to justify and to pay off what has been a very, very good early game from KT.
I think KT need to set themselves up for a Baron play. Mata not going to be able to find that cheeky ward around the Baron pit. I think his sweep is going to find it at the very end. He's going to be able to chuck a control ward into that pit anyway to deny that vision. Def desperately wanting to get that transformation, but will very, very soon. We'll see what that Null Magic Mantle is going to turn into. I think QSS probably going to be the option here for the Ezreal, just so that he can QSS Arcane Shift himself out of a whole lot of the problems that Griffin are going to demonstrate for the Ezreal.
Speaking of transformations, Archangel's just transformed for Yukon. He has a death cap, so
good God,
this boy does a lot of damage if you don't have magic resist.
Lahen's going to find the Soul Shackles, though, onto Mata, who's thankfully for KT pretty tanky at the moment. Def gets out of the way of the Dark Binding.
Don't think Nocturne was in range for that one. There's a lot of long-range harass. Now the ult's popped.
Yeah, okay, ultimate from Sword not going to boop anyone back in, though, and that's just paranoia for the vision denial. And Rumble, all the while, just burning down minions bottom side.
So he popped Paranoia because Sword said he could get the explosive cask off. When that didn't pay off, there's no reason for Nocturne to dive into 4 people. So that's where they stop the baitas. Speaking of baits.
Okay, Viper's going to go down very, very low. Demonic Ascension going to be popped, as well as that stopwatch. Never Move finds no one as Viper flashes his way out. No, he doesn't. Just wanders his way out. Yukao going to continue pushing things forward. There's a lot of attempts to be used here, and KT actually just used dashes to get over that wall as well.
Trading places, though. The top laners have traded places. Sword doesn't have teleport, and KT have Baron control, so they're onto the Baron.
Yep, Weaver's Wall going to be utilized here. Remember, 5 seconds is not the 8 seconds that it used to be, but look at this. They've got so much single target damage onto this buff as Sword.
Yet.
Tarzan's going to get in and steals the Baron once again. Score needs to use the Lamb's Respite early as the True Shot Barrage does basically nothing. Yukao gets rid of the Nocturne, but he's already done everything that he wanted to do. The double knockback coming in from Sword is now Chovy is going ballistic on the backline. Deft trying to get all of the shots he needs, but Sword somehow survives. And it's a disaster once again. Score, where are the smites, buddy?
You knew it had to be this way. We were problem solving how it would happen, and it does happen. Mata walks away. This is him accepting that, yes, I really should have taken Smite. I needed that. No unsealed spellbook, no problem.
Oh God, KT.
He just knew it had to be this way. They didn't have the Mountain Drakes this game. They have a lot of Baron damage. Tarzan says, I'm a young man. I'm going to take this. Score was boasting about his smites after stealing the Baron away from Blank in the telecom war. This is what we call just desserts on that particular one. The bad feels are now abound for KT, and this is why everyone comes away a bit scarred if they're a KT fan.
Yep. Oh, Deft. Very close to getting that kill onto Sword. It was single-digit damage, but KT still, they have themselves a 1,000 gold lead. But there's a Baron buff ticking on Griffin, and it feels like it's gonna keep ticking down as far as KT's advantage in this game is concerned. As we move later and later, Papa, does this mean that Griffin once again find themselves in a position where their team fight will be able to take down KT? Or do KT still have the tools that they want to win this game despite the blunder around the Baron that we were all expecting?
I don't think we're there yet for Griffin, but I think there is a tipping point. But hey, we're YOLOing.
Yep, Paranoia is gonna fly forward as Tarzan basically just dies for it. That was odd. Misclick? Okay, Tarzan just wanted to eat honey fruit and wanted to do it from a low health total, I think, is how that one's supposed to work out. Nothing invested from KT in order to get out of the way of that one. So, this Drake, the first for Griffin, is going to go down. KT not going to bother trying to contest that one as they move minion waves away from their structures, trying to make sure this Baron isn't going to get as much as possible done. Outer turret on the bottom side of the map probably will go down, but Sword, he's got a target on his back, and KT are just running straight for him. He's going to get back home. Empowered recall certainly useful. That means he's not able to take down this outer turret on the bottom side. And Yukao just gets a whole bunch more farm. Try and catch up to Chovy.
It's not going to be a huge Baron buff power play, but it's going to be what Griffin needed. They didn't have the ability to actually say, no, we made the joke about being the British gentleman. That's different now. They get the Baron, they're able to control their own agency in a game that KT were running in every single way. KT was making every decision until a point, and that point is Baron being claimed by Griffin. The fallback happens. The items that may never have been completed are put together by Griffin. The lifeline that they never should have gotten is now active, and KT need to be scrutinized because if they make another mistake, the game can just straight up end.
Yeah. Still got some more items that they do want to pick up. Void Staff just completed for UCal, wants to be done for Smeb as well. Top side has that broken stopwatch, but Azonya's would be something that he'd very much enjoy as well. Looking at the side of Def, does get that transformation, and it was a Hex Drinker that he went for with that Null Magic Mantle. See where he is going to go next, whether he forgoes completing anything that he has in his inventory and just goes for that Blade of the Ruin King that we see so often from the Ezreals.
I think Tarzan needs a Guardian Angel to be relevant this game. He has basically a one-way trip to the Death Chamber with a bit of burst damage onto someone in his current build. But he does have dive buddies, and if Gragas and Swain do the heavy lifting, perhaps the Paranoia and just a bit of burst damage will be enough. They take down what represents a lot of standing gold for the side of Griffin, because this is only their second turret of the game in the bot side. I feel like one more item. If I see a Guardian Angel and also, say, a Miranomicon onto the Swain, 3 items is when I think they're going to be in a much better spot. KT are already on 3 items on everyone. They are still in the driver's seat in many ways, but because they can't actually break the base, it's very difficult to push through Vel'Koz's wave clear unless they pull off a 4-1, but Rumble doesn't actually win trades super hard against Gragas this late in the game, can't kill the Gragas. Because they can't actually put in that mortal blow, which we represented as Baron or actually breaking the base, breaking an inhibitor, it seems very likely that Griffin will get those items as we do get the confirmation. It was about a 900 gold Baron buff power play.
Yeah, and KT, since that Baron has worn off, have actually been able to extend the lead that did shrink back to about 1,000 after that Baron was taken. KT certainly still in control as far as these camps, and you can see that because they're pushing so much further forward. But Griffin probably pretty happy just to play it slow. This is what this team is good at, what they were known for as they made their way into the LCK. It's looked like faster play from them in recent games, but they've had a lot of momentum and they've looked good. This is their territory. Can they actually make it work out here against KT? KT have given them the traditional Baron that they like to give a lot of teams. But remember, that didn't work in game number 1. Whether it'll work here in game number 3.
Griffin have definitely gotten better in the early game than they were in Challenger. They played themselves into confidence with some great performances in the LCK, but they are definitely worse than KT Rolster in the early game. It's no surprise to people, but we're still waiting for confirmed thoughts about Griffin. Full thoughts, and full thoughts probably need more time than we're going to have in just spring season, but for now it's 2 sides of a round robin. The second round robin only now getting started for the side of Griffin. So still, teams around the world who pride themselves on the early game, which isn't many teams in Korea, we should say, especially with Kingzone so far out of form. It is KT Rolster as the super early game team, and I guess maybe Hanwha Life Esports as the second best.
Yeah, Songman certainly putting them in that
of the aggressive
category.
Early game teams. That's definitely where Griffin will be tripped up. If the meta changes also, will they be worse in a marksman early game meta? The answer is possibly. We still don't have the data to know about that. KT could go on to lose this series because of a handful of smites, and that's probably a very depressing reality for some people, but they have set themselves up for success. We've learned about where Griffin's at. This game's not decided. A slim gold lead to KT. There's definitely still the potential for a team fight they come out ahead on.
Well, Baron spawning now in 1 second's time. Still KT with a lot of positional advantage around this buff. You could imagine Old Man Score's fingers are tingling, looking for that next smite, wanting to make sure that it is as confident as possible that they're not going to have to 50-50. Control Ward's going to work out here for Griffin, who have managed to find themselves some territory that it may actually be dangerous stuff. Weaver's Wall going to come down as Lamb's Respite. Very early usage to come in from Score as Viper not going to get a lot of value out of his stopwatches. True Shot Barrage was good, and Sword trying to split up this fight. Equalizer in a great position, but more defensive use from KT as Griffin don't lose anyone and are able to back away successfully.
How many true backs can happen here with Baron on the rift? Swain takes one, has teleport, will teleport straight back in. Shen gets a free back, he has Stand United. Still trying to fully understand what to make of all of this. A lot of cooldowns.
Oh god, Lehen's having to flash.
Does that mean Baron here for KT? Back to the scene of the crime. They clear out the ward. They're not on it just yet. They will return to it, though, you'd have to imagine.
Yep, Mata still has that Stand United available and was gifted a free waddle back towards his team. Smeb comes in, Sword taking some actual considerable damage here on the Gragas. Wants to be able to regen that health bar. Drunken Rage you saw just there. Working out very nicely as KT, they're back on the Baron once again. How is this one going to work out though? Paranoia still on cooldown. Sword in the backline. Tarzan trying to get into the pit as the Baron is low. It's once again going to be a 50-50, but this time Score gets it. Immediately he's going to fall down as Griffin are going to suffer at the hands of KT, but Chovy getting a couple on the back end of it. Good God, if that hadn't have been the smite going for Score, that could have been all over.
KT get the Baron. This time Mata is on position to try to peel. Doesn't even do the full job. Like you say, it was a 50-50, but 50-50 goes the way of KT. They get the objective they set up around. They don't lose too many members for it. It's a 3-for-3.
Oh man, we need to make sure that all the KT fans are on watch today because the heart attacks would certainly be coming out. Let's have a look at this fight once again, and it was definitely a 50-50. Score almost had to smite for health at that stage.
He was at 150 health, knows his job, sticks around for his job, and Score does get the smite. So definitely no criticism to him in this particular arena. You look at his team and you realize, compared to other teams that pull off cleaner smites, he doesn't really have a lot of help. There's only Mata when it comes to peel. You get the full zoom onto Score. He was able to pick it up at 7 marks as well, so gets that extra range onto his abilities and auto attacks. They get the Baron. KT Rolster will hope they don't have to deal with another 50-50 smite to close out the game.
They are going to be able to use their first Baron of this game to try and shove forward as well. Massive shout out to Chovy in both of the fights that we've seen erupt around the Barons. The positioning and the timing of the spells for this Vel'Koz have been very good despite his solo death in the mid lane. Yukal now shoving on top side. He will be able to easily grab this inner turret.
Terrain and Nocturne is definitely, as we both alluded to, set up the Vel'Koz for some big ults in team fights. No backline threat from KT outside the long-range damage, as we discussed.
Yep.
KT pushing up. They got the Baron. Would love to get an inhibitor turret, but they might lose their
Oh,
shit.
there's the boot back. Beautiful stuff onto Mata.
Yeah.
The Equalizer also invested in this, as Smeb will need to wait for that cooldown. That could buy a lot of time here for Griffin as Score dancing away from the Gragas. Doesn't have the ultimate, but does still pose a lot of threat.
It's a 4v4. I think if Tarzan comes back, he can, of course, ult very quickly. But he's a bit slow on the return. Maybe the call wasn't clear. Viper's walking up as the Nocturne comes back. He gets a flash out of Yukal.
Yep, Yukal going to flash his way out, and this may actually not be over just yet as he gets pulled back in. Stopwatch comes down. Paranoia, as like you say, the Nocturne wants to get back in here. He will fly forward. Lamb's Respite is going to be used just in time as True Shot Barrage softens up all the members of Griffin. It is Yukal grabbing a kill and Score dancing out of the way, but the ultimate's no good this time from Chovy, and Deft wants to find the fight once again. KT Rolster fight back in what was a very one-sided affair. Mata, he stood united to get back in, but it was very, very late in the piece. That was almost a true 4v5 for KT.
And the problem with Squishies and the Lamb's Respite is it's just a target zone for the Vel'Koz to rain down artillery and get multiple kills. When you're Squishies with a Lamb's Respite, you can't fully disengage, you can't get away from the artillery mage in the Vel'Koz, and you go down. So no value there. They do lose a couple more members as Griffin just all in to wait for their Nocturne to come and clean up some kills.
Yeah, and man, Deft, he's got 3 magic resist items now. If you include the boots, more of Malmortius was completed like we were talking about, and now that QSS is in there. So he's feeling pretty comfortable against the 2 AP damage threats. So I guess 3 coming down from Griffin. It's just Tarzan that's going to offer him any troubles. How will this now work out? As KT, no more Baron buff available, and Griffin didn't get their base broken. Look at the damage. It was Yukal. It was all about Yukal.
Was a very extended fight. May even have been longer than the 30 seconds that were tracked in that particular overlay. We were waiting for certain items, weren't we, Atlas? And they're here now. Guardian Angel is on to the Nocturne, so he's going to be able to have a bit of a team fight role. The Vel'Koz is decked out. He is a very strong purple monster. KT Rolster, 1,600 gold. Was that Baron buff power play? Went the way of the red side for once this series. And now, my first thought is, Atlas, that I think that Griffin are set up for fights. That hasn't mattered for the two teams set up for fights in Game 1 and Game number 2. KT don't have a Realm Walk to be able to really change this game. If flashes are up, even though Equalizer has bigger scaling and bigger base damage, you feel like Flash will be enough to get them away from it. Where will the other variable come from? Maybe a really big ultimate from Talia will be enough to actually corral Griffin. But I think if Griffin are in control of their agency, i.e. they have flashes up, they're the ones initiating a fight, I find it tricky to see how KT win the 5v5, barring a significant misplay from Griffin.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, I think that KT do have a lot of tools in these later game fights, but a lot of it has to do with KT successfully denying vision as well. If KT can get themselves into a position where they control the fate of themselves in these team fights, they will be able to start off with that pick. They'll be able to get the taunts that they're looking for. Right now, Griffin is stealing vision away from KT, and they're unable to deny Griffin the knowledge.
Their vision at this point isn't doing much because their forward control that they had at what? 8 minutes into the game, 10 minutes into the game, has never bequeathed them an inhibitor. They haven't got an inhibitor turret. They're finding even some resilience on inner turrets, as one is still on the Rift. They're stealing away red buffs for maybe the millionth time this game. And while it means a couple of marks have gone the Kindred's way in the last 5 to 10 minutes, it hasn't meant the game closing. These Rumble comps have always struggled to fully end games with double marksmen. They don't have a front line, only a support Shen in order to siege. If they can suck a lot of people into, say, top lane and then get a fast siege with double marksmen, they do a lot of turret damage. But getting that damage in range has proved impossible so far for KT Rolster.
Well, maybe the Infinity Edge that Score just completed is going to help out. Now 60% crit, given the fact that he had the rapid fire cannon already completed. This is a Kindred that can tussle with the best of the AD carries, especially with all of the marks that he's picked up. It's a pretty sweet hat on the Vel'Koz, though. And if Score isn't able to get that Layers of Spite down in time, he could just pop in a matter of seconds.
It's never going to have threat on this Vel'Koz. Vel'Koz can win the game straight up, has flash heal, hasn't really had to use his summon as much, went down in the laning phase with 7 consecutive kills after going down 0-1-0.
2 seconds, and that Baron is going to be up yet again. The last one for KT was unable to net them too much as Score trying to control where Griffin are. Griffin always so good at orchestrating the beginning of these team fights that they love so much. Tarzan was off to the north, but it meant that KT just shoved that wave forward, and now it's their turn to sweep through, deny vision, take control back of this Baron area. Vision of Empire is going to come in to spot KT out. As Sword successfully disengages with his body slam.
Again, while we smiled about the draft of KT because of the trademark champions, you're starting to see why. Together, outside of early domination, win lane, win game, they really are struggling. They knew in the first Rumble versus tank meta that tanks can teleport into the backline and start fights. KT can't teleport into the backline. They have no backline threat. That's why Vel'Koz is turning out to be an inspired pick after the initial pain. And the game could have been lost in the initial pain, for sure.
Yeah.
If there were no shenanigans, but always is those shenanigans when we see KT Rolster involved. And now they can't teleport flank. They can't siege. They can win a fight with damage, but against all of these flashes up, it does feel like we're at the whim of when Griffin choose to engage rather than KT that have been winning the entire time. Although
they're going to try and turn that one around as Lahens does have to use his Zhonya's, and now the Lamb's Respite comes in. It's going to save all the members of every team right now. There's Martyrs so low. Deft grabs the first kill in the fight, but Slord is going to immediately follow that one up. Score out of this one now forever as Yukal trying to be the savior. Tarzan still has his Guardian Angel available as now Deft having to deal with Viper who flashes forward. Yukal as well is going to be able to get that GA, and Viper suffers the wrath of Deft and Score. KT rain hell on Griffin, and this might just be it.
Yukal, no emotions. Has he done it? Has he outplayed them? Chovy couldn't hit the damage on the back end. The front line goes down. KT Rolster, what are they going to do? They're teleporting onto minion waves. They want to break the base. Can they end the game? Your first thought is no.
Well, Score, he's going to check out this Baron area as Deft clears the wave, and it looks like, yes, KT, they want to take down the Baron. Score, he senses not a 50-50, and they'll get rid of the Purple Worm.
Just some really inspired fighting from KT Rolster, getting over some humps in their comp and get the Baron. They can't end the game from this play, but the Baron will feel so, so sweet to KT Rolster. Third Baron of this third game. Mata rolls up. We get the replay to understand how this all came to be. The big start that comes here is that KT do find initiation, an unlikely one, with a taunt flash, but before the Black Shield can go in, and Tarzan Lehen super low before any of it begins. No Morgana utility, no value out of Viper, and you gotta say, Viper's Swain here, the Swain that KT were happy to give up, doesn't get any value. If he never engages in this fight, it ends up being even. Instead, he greedily flashes in for damage, miscalculates, and this Swain really has not worked out for the side of Griffin once again.
And KT, they're going to be able to grab both of the buffs as well. The Elder Drake goes down, and I can understand the miscalculation. Look at how much damn magic resist this Ezreal has. He got more Malmortius as well as his Mercurial Scimitar. It's just really difficult for these magic damage dealers to kill the squishy Ezreal.
True damage on the Vel'Koz might be able to do it. Right now, there's not enough threat from Tarzan to do it. I take your point, but he can see the items. That, of course, is revealed to the enemy team. So Viper needs to be able to know exactly how much damage he will do at every item timing. The Swain is a recent pick for him, and while he's been able to play stuff as crazy as Kled mid earlier this series, Griffin as a whole do not deserve a Swain ban sent at them, and if you have higher profile picks for your team, you don't need to steal the Swain away. This would be 1-3 scoreline with Swain on the side of Griffin.
And Yukal, he's got so many items. Deft as well already. Chock-a-full. This is late game. It's a 10,000 gold lead, but that 11-11 scoreline up the top of your screen might allude to a different outcome, because it's looking close on paper, but we know that KT are knocking on the door of a victory right now.
And remember, that happened because the fight was started by KT, something that the comp wasn't supposed to be able to do. Mata just invents it out of nowhere. He pulls an initiation out of nowhere with a taunt flash onto a support Morgana that actually allows them to rein in the damage they've always had, but couldn't actually field. They throw down the Weaver's Wall, they want to break the base. This has frustrated them for 45 minutes.
Yep, and Sword is going to stay in there, trying to at least offer something for the side of Griffin, but he's not going to get there. Deft, look at how safe he feels. Hit by the damage that Chovy throws in, actually looking pretty relevant here, but finally the base is broken, inhibitor taken down. KT dancing their way towards their next objective as Mata split pushing on the bottom side with Stand United at the ready.
We got the timers on the top side. Below that KT1, you see 43 seconds of Baron, 20 seconds of Elder. Griffin would do smart to disengage till those buffs are down, but look at how much they'll lose trying to wait for a better time.
Yeah, these towers are just melting at the hands of KT. Mata even putting pressure enough to bring two people down towards the bottom side of the map as Griffin really want to hang on to at least part of their base. Yukal turns up, but that is two inhibitors. Successful Baron here on the third time of asking for KT. It's gotten better and better. They lose the first one, they don't break the base with the second, but the third one, two inhibitors. Can't ask for too much more when a game is as close as this one, or has felt at least as close as this one.
5 seconds left onto this Baron. Score has such immense range whenever his rapid fire cannon is up. It's over 750 that he's able to walk up and auto and get in. Little chip damage onto this inhibitor turret in the bot lane. Still, Griffin will feel there's a team fight they can win. They cannot afford to give up 3 inhibitors though, and another Weaver's Wall is thrown out.
Yep, used on cooldown, and that is going to be the end of that turret. Lehens desperately wants to hold on to his flash and does so as he stays over the wall, but that's damage done. KT, all they wanted to do was break that last remaining inhibitor turret. Griffin now have to deal with the super minions that are streaming forward. Chovy does a lot of damage to deal with them at this point because they weren't able to stack magic resist like a lot of the members of KT.
Flashes up on everyone, including the Gragas, of course. I think you have to make it engage at some point, Griffin. You need a last stand. Will they even make it?
Yeah, and is it going to be a last stand around Nexus turrets? Looks like it will be. At least they have a couple more in close proximity to deal with, but it looks like KT will now just back themselves away. They've utilized their buffs to great effect, destroyed the base, and that is one hell of a Baron buff power play this time around.
You don't often see Baron buff power plays that big at 47 minutes in a game where the team was winning since about minute 5. But 40 minutes later, they needed that third Baron in order to actually engineer a very long way to take down these inhibitors, which has been something they have been striving to do for so long. Chovy is 8-1-2, legendary, after going 0-1 on this Vel'Koz, and it may not matter. Can they actually force the fight here, Griffin, now that KT can go back, be freshly shopped, 90,000 gold claimed by KT Rolster, bring in 3 waves of super minions, and then just make it an entire zoo with a couple of extra people attending the zoo for the team of Griffin to have to respect, otherwise the game will just end.
Yeah, and you've got UCal and Deft now without shoes as well, as there's only 3 pairs on the side of KT. Banshee's Veil picked up from UCal as well as his Spell Slinger, and there's a GA on the back of Deft. He's about as safe as you can be as an Ezreal, despite having slightly lower movement speed, but thankfully, with the Cloud Drake, might be helping him out there, as now we've just got 3 waves of super creeps to be ushered towards these Nexus turrets, and we need a miracle from Griffin. They need to try and hold on here. They can't let any of these go down because the chip damage is going to be such a problem. They've got the wave clear. KT still trying to shove these waves in. Pressure not quite amounting to enough just yet, as we'll see whether they pull the trigger on and engage themselves.
Is there one super play left in this third game of what has been a great 3-hour series? Weaver's Wall thrown down, Viper separated.
Yeah, got Threaded Volley working out his sword. He's going to dive in, but it's a great Zhonya's from Smeb to keep him alive. Paranoia to come through as well, but Griffin are suffering. The first turret is going to go down, the second one under fire. The Equalizer is incredible on the backline to get them away from this Nexus that KT have in their sights. That's going to be that. It's a 2-1 this time, but still a KT victory, and Mata so excited. Him and Deft playing that one beautifully at the end, but geez, it was close.
And the cold hard fact, Atlas, is that KT Rolster have proved to be the kryptonite of Griffin. Over 5 games, they have been the better team for the great majority of the playtime. They are not 4-0. There's not without mistakes, but their general playstyle of aggression was successful. They have hit the 3rd loss onto Griffin for the season. If we see a best of 5 between these two teams, we know it'll be a fiery one, but KT Rolster should come in favorites because their aggressive early game is something that seems to really pull at the natural tendencies of Griffin.
Yeah, the only team with 100% win rate against Griffin, and they will until we get to the playoffs as well. KT Rolster, they're one of the teams that, you know, they can lose to anyone, they can win against anyone, but it looks like they have Griffin's number at this point in time. But man, what a beautiful series. To go back and have a look at all of the trials and tribulations from both of the teams. There were a whole lot of times where I had no idea who was even in the driver's seat of each respective game.
And to me, the sad thing is that we have a lot of asterisks. There were a lot of Baron steals in this game, and part of that was you should have been able to peel for the Baron better, and part of that was just dumb luck and just unfortunate situations that came up. And the problem with that is, let's remove the random factors from this series. KT wins it really easily if all those Barons go the way of KT. If even 1 or 2 less Barons go the way of Griffin, KT win it really easily, and that is the bigger takeaway than the eventual 3 hours. There was some Fiesta around it, but the Fiesta only suited Griffin. Felt like KT Rolster were comfortably the better team than Griffin over 3 matches. They deserved to win. Takeaways here, great game on the Vel'Koz, but by the end, really, KT able to just about get over the line in what was a fun series.
It was a brilliant series. The thing I love about it as well is it comes back to the draft. It's once again the punishment of that necessary first pick Nocturne that first was orchestrated by Griffin and then orchestrated by KT, and both punished differently.
And if I'm CV Max, the coach of Griffin, at least I have one clear takeaway. Get in there, practice the Swain, get better at the Swain. The nerf to Swain is not going to be enough to push him out of the meta. They don't have a convincing Swain player on the team. They need to.
Yeah, they're going to need to, and see whether that does actually come forward. Of course, the Swain bans could come in. They could just roll the dice with some other picks because, like you were mentioning, certainly underwhelming, but still, There's not a whole lot that you need to criticize Griffin for because it was still a beautiful series of League of Legends. Could have gone either way. Game 2 was really nicely played by them as well. We're going to have a look at the MVP for this game. It will be Deft that grabs it on the Ezreal, 3-0 and 6. Only his second MVP that he's picked up. He's had a few games that have looked very, very good. I loved his Varus in game number 1. But finally, Deft gets some more recognition here for the team.
It was very tricky to actually choose an MVP from this game
I was
from
a bit
KT.
confused.
They all had a bit of a day out in the early game, but by the end, it's hard to separate who to actually call the MVP. We're already at level 18 as the clips start to roll, which lets you know the kind of game this was between KT and Griffin. Deft was on a maneuverable champion who was able to put out consistent damage in many fights. I picked Famada because to me this was the game breaker, actually finding an engage against Griffin's comp with KT's. Good luck, I say, and he was able to do so. What ended up being a big moment for KT that really blew open the game. Soared so many times, desperate for an engage, but he was always finding multiple members turning on him and multiple flashes available because Griffin had no way to force those.
Yeah, and this was that moment that you were talking about. The fact that Viper flashes forward with not enough damage to actually take down Deft or score. And in the back line, it was Deft that was able to destroy them. So nicely done. It's going to be Deft able to sit down with the MVP interview for the second time only this season, as we are going to throw it to Joel for the translation.
Thank you very much, guys. This is Joel with your interview translations for today. And I can't really just compromise for the fact that KT Rolster, they're not the best team in LCK, but they're good at beating previously the best team in LCK and beating Griffin once again in this series. And we're going to talk to their MVPs. Yucal also Deft. We always see you, Yucal, giving the high five towards Deft, not score as soon as you win games. I think I'm more comfortable giving high fives to Deft. And Deft, no deaths. Just incredible performance from you today and just a complete focus from you all day long today. I think for game 1 and game 3, I got the picks that I was very confident with, so that's the reason I was able to do well today. And of course, it felt like Yucal was feeling that the Talia should have gotten the MVP in the last one. You know, if I got the MVP in game 3, I would have been first place, but because of Deft, I'm getting held back. I think it's my second time now. But you know, you can probably start sharing some. And the one that did better did get the MVPs today, and we're gonna have a talk with obviously KT Rolster how they beat out Griffin once again. It was Yucal and Chovy was the matchup today, and once again very interesting matchup for a lot of fans who have been watching just from the screen. And depending on, it doesn't matter, you know, which mid laner I face up against, I have no reason to lose against, and I have all the confidence in the world to win every time. And you were very much the important one to clinch the win was around the Baron pit, just really decisive to go for the Baron right away. And what was who made the decision here? I was looking at two members going for the Elder Drake, so also for us to just go right away. And how did it go right after this? Oh, this is the one we didn't get stolen, but. And of course, you did take many Barons. A few of them you did get stolen, but a few of them you guys did get. But it felt like the Rise Ultimate being utilized very well today, and of course, leading on to the team fights that were in your favor. Just seemed as if during the preparation, you guys did the strategizing very much for this. Yeah, we got definitely hit by the Rise Ultimate on the other side from different opponents in the past, so we tried to use the same strategy against our opponents. And you do say that the coaching staff maybe a different outlook as to how you guys are now running the meta. I mean, for our coaching staff, they're very good at just keeping us in line with our mentality, so it keeps our positivity in line to help us win the games. And with the rune selections being very unique, along with the item selection, that's something that's different to KT in recent games. Maybe you want to introduce a little bit about that. I knew that basically the opponents' champions were pretty short range, so putting the comment on the Varus was the right thing to go on that one. Putting the emphasis on poking, as we can see from KT Rolster, but Nocturne and Talia now is seemingly the good duo to go with. Do you feel the pressure of going with that duo composition? I mean, there is a different positives to different duos out there, so I'm just not really worried about anything, just trying to go with whatever I can. We do have the different sections of the interview today, because really about UCal, Deft, and about the Baron as well. So this is another important point to keep our eyes upon. And this was a very dangerous situation. Mata just went for the initiate right away. What was the kind of thought process right on this one? They were pretty separated with all the members, so if we just strike early, we could pick off some members early, and that was going to be our really chance to go forward for the win here. And we knew that we were very concentrated and focused on getting each of one of our skill shots, so very focused to get the win here. You really were looking for that one shot, for that one victory, and how was that all together? Of course, after winning it all. I mean, I basically, with Viper, came in right away, just kind of unexpectedly. So I knew I wasn't going to die right with that one shot, but I still tried to stay alive for the time being. And we thought that definitely the focus of Deft is definitely on another level for today's matches, and we definitely felt that all the way through. It really was, I'm sure, heart-shaking in the terms of how the game went back and forth between you guys. Yeah, even with the Baron being taken away, it allowed us to actually concentrate a little bit more, because we knew that one bit of mistake could ruin the game, so it definitely allowed us to focus a little bit better. It definitely wasn't once that you guys had score getting stolen of the Baron, had it multiple times. Maybe what was the communication after that happened? We told him that it was okay, and we did have multiple win conditions still left remaining, so we definitely kept him reminded of that. And just putting the hopes onto score and the rest of KT Rolster between the teammates was maybe the biggest thing. I mean, even if we did get the Baron stolen away, we were at such an advantage that we didn't have to worry too much about it. And maybe you guys do believe that you guys were ahead most of that game. And the composition that we brought up had a longer range of skill shots, so it allowed us to just poke from behind and never really in a situation to get caught off like that. And really just emphasizing the ranged ADC prospects from Deft here. And with KT, we just don't know what to expect from these guys, as always, and sometimes they just really lose the kind of games that they should win, and they win the games sometimes that they should lose. So now that you guys did collect the win, and maybe you want to just kind of headhunting for the top teams out there. We were trying to make sure that we get all the wins against Griffin, so hopefully, we're going to try to do better against other teams as well. And Deft, I'm sure you do hear from UCal putting a lot of confidence into it, but with the fans, would you like to say something as well? I know that right before the game, just for the first time in my career, I just made sure to work with different champions, and I was working with different champions today right before the game started, so I'm trying to become a diverse person and diverse player where I can play a variety of different picks to maybe entertain and also to win games as well. And that is going to be concluding the interview shortly, but I know that Yukal's father has been coming out to watch, and would you like to say something to him, maybe as well? I know, I think if Score wins the LCK, maybe that will mean something, but maybe I want to just really go forward and put a lot of effort online as well. And still very much a good win for KT Rolster. See if they can keep it up for the next games, but for the meantime, sending it back to you guys.
Thank you very much, Joel. My goodness, what an extended series we had on our hands, but we wouldn't want it any other way. There we go, game 1 went the way of KT Rolster. Griffin fought back in game 2, but 50 minutes later in game 3 was the KT 2-1 victory.
And when it comes to standings, that is where the implication will really be felt, because now Griffin are at 8-3. We already remember that they had someone at 8-3 before. That was Gen G, ahead of Gen G on game score. But apart from that, 9-3 for Griffin. So one match ahead, sorry, my apologies, of Gen G. But Gen G are going to feel pretty good. They might be able to get to 9-3 on their next fixture. KT now at 8-4. They find themselves third. Kingzone, FLICKR, both coming off pretty humiliating losses, but we will see 6 and 7 play in our second match of the night.
Yeah, we'll be Hanwha taking on SKT after this, as you can see on your screen right there. And next week, I believe KT go up against both Kingzone and Gen G. Always getting spicy as we get to the last few weeks of the LCK second round robin. These playoffs still could go almost any way. It's our top 6 teams that are really vying for those top 4, top 5 places. And SKT trying to knock Hanwha down a peg will be after the break, but it won't be a very long one. Just the 20 minutes that we have to reset up for our different teams.
Might be another 18 best of 3 days. We're on course for it, 9 games in a row already.
Yeah, I could really hope so. We'll see whether it can be SKT fighting back against Hanwha, but it will be about 20 minutes for our second series of the night. Don't go anywhere.
But you're the criminal. No implication, you're unpredictable. Time to lose control.
Up next, SK Telecom T1, Hanwha Life Esports.
2018 League of Legends Champions Korea Summer Split.